Janchu Padu Dani Kyapsuchi, Dagi Chuni Gipe Sonampi, Drola Penche Sange Drupasho. Chodan Soki Chonamla, Janchu Padu Dani Kyapsuchi, Dagi Chuni Gipe Sonampi, Drola Penche Sange Drupasho.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, Geshe.
How was your weekdays?
Good. Very good.
Busy?
Yeah.
Anyway, today weather is a little cold. What changed the weather? You can see. Usually Buddhism believe. At the moment, everything changed. We say, who get up this morning on the bed? This person right now, they really changed, not that kind of person. But we didn't see, everybody say. Anyway, we talk about Buddhism. And usually Buddhism say, whatever, when you do some study or practice, very important to two things. First, you have right motivation. Then when you finish, you do right dedication. And also, usually whatever we do some activity, daily things, we have very good motivation to our heart to do finish this thing today or right way, then we can do effort for those things. Then when finish, we are happy. Oh, I done today. Anyway, then what kind of motivation we need set up? Everybody knows it, but usually we say again, because this is more important. Then we say, all the sentient beings, all the human beings, animal beings, insects, all the beings, same is us, not wanting any sufferings, wish all the happiness. Same is us. Therefore, we wish to they are free from the suffering and wish to they get happiness. But usually we like to help, we say, I like to help some others. But right now we have not power to help to all the sentient beings to help. How can we do? We cannot control our mind, our problems. Therefore, Buddhism believe, or we say Buddha. Buddha is he who person, same as us, they are born human being. Then he study meditation, then he achieve enlightenment. When he or she achieve enlightenment, then they knows all the sentient beings view, then they can teach, they can lead for them whatever they want. Therefore we set up benefit for all the sentient beings, achieve enlightenment first by myself. then I teach. I listen to teach, I listen to teaching, I study, I practice. Look like that kind of motivation. For the rest. It's okay.
What's the feedback?
Anyway, what do we say? Therefore, usually, all the world, we have a lot of different religions. All the religions are not same, their views, but they're all same to benefit for sentient beings. Then, this benefit for, Buddha or Bodhisattvas, some person want to,
So some teachings, like the Christianity, have some kind of beings. For some people, the Christianity is more beneficial. For some people, the Judaism is more beneficial, or Buddhism or Islam is more beneficial. So it all benefits sentient beings.
some chulu peche tange chulu te kar kane susu kepsang raha chide yang chik peche loba tangayna tate chulu kya mares chulu te nyamse nyamle bati kya was.
So sometimes people take advantage of the religion and use it for their own benefit. So if you see something like that, then that's not the fault of the religion, it's the fault of the person who is misusing it. So in that way, in that sense, all the religions are same in benefiting sentient beings, but of course there are differences in terms of the views. So therefore it is very important from our side to respect all of these religions. If you respect all these different religions, then there will be less problems in the society. So like I mentioned earlier, so there are these two things, the suffering that we don't want and the happiness we want. And the suffering we don't want, there are physical sufferings and mental sufferings. So our body and our mind are separate. It's two different things. So if we compare these two sufferings, the physical and the mental suffering is more dominating or more powerful. So this thing called mind is very crucial, important. So nowadays you can find, from the research of the scientists that, from the way you think, can make changes in your brains. So also there will be difference in the effectiveness of the medicine from the way you think again. If your mind is more relaxed, then my medicine becomes more effective. If your mind is more stressed, it becomes less effective, and so forth. So it does kind of affect the external things as well.
And the time, members of the local center was, and then we same job, she did a popular way, because the Lila is not to show the Yoga in the young. Come meet the Koyonada. And it's you there for the relation was.
So nowadays, the scientists found out that even though he has physical sicknesses, but if his mind is at peace and relaxed, then his body also becomes more comfortable, feels more comfortable, more healthy.
Today that the same side is shall catch my brother. Today that I switch come in there do not have Mama Cheji, that's simply some of the
And so mind is very important. So many of these sufferings that we don't want come from the mind as well.
When a same they have a cheddar, the lipo,
so for the sake of the mental happiness, we work very hard physically, right? So for example, climbing up the mountains or diving into the seas and so forth. So these are all to give happiness to your mind, right?
And this seven deva yachi there, and Garasuchi, Supola, Lilaya,
and then also, in order to make ourselves happy, our mind happy, then we spend a lot of money and time on our bodies, right?
We have to lack of things. Anyway, then that can't say much. So, Garasuchi. Then there was so that 7 deva go. 7 deva never yena. That she didn't country try to go on that.
So we should mainly, strive to seek the happiness of the inner mind. So if your mind is not happy, no matter how fit you are physically, you will not be happy. So, for example, now it is the 21st century, and during maybe 16th or 17th century, people all thought that if you have all these external things, facilities, or the conditions, then you'll be happy. So everybody worked very hard to achieve these external conditions. And so, like in this country now, when we think about the external facilities or the favorable conditions, there are plenty of them, right? Beyond our imagination. So whatever the person needs, we'll be able to find here, right? So for here, example, if we're a little bit cold, we can turn on the heat right away. If we are hot, we can turn on the AC right away.
Not how just push button. That she intended that Rona, Tango, so Comajan, Rosang in the mother, that Kamachama, Comajan Road with us, Morakino.
Then, if you have to get to somewhere, you don't walk more than 15 minutes, you take a car, take a car ride, right?
That color over that chose a chick, such a man, can't not switch Sayat. Said it, yard can do, said it, so Tampa in the Sayat.
And then in terms of the food, it's just that you are not supposed to eat this and that, but there are so many plenty of things to eat. And not only that, you can make so much selections. There are so many selections, so much options to select what you want to eat and not.
아니 둘로 하는 다 저도 해보지게 둘로 해보지 않고도 집에는 가까스요. 대상에 딸리반에 괜히 미치고해서 말았어.
So and in terms of the cloth, you never wear cloth that has a patch, right? In this country, you don't see people wearing patched clothes.
Yeah. It's the style.
Yeah, sometimes that's just
Yeah, like
special just. 야고서 하지는 고등어도 바래도 왔어. 근데 되게 많은 그런 거 되는
So yeah, it's for style. You do that, right? Or sometimes you even tear, some part of the cloth, right, as a style. Otherwise, in terms of the facilities you have, you don't need to wear that.
아니 쇼야 둘로 나타 잡아. 다디 공에서 나포행에 공이 찍으면 왔어.
And then also, there's nobody who wears clothes with the stains or dirts, right, on their clothes.
Then you got to change it every day, right?
yeah.
근데 다 나도 실로 대제는 나도 수단 들마다 쉬운 정도도 와서 가지 되네.
And so from the external, the favorable conditions, in terms of the external and favorable conditions, we have everything you need here, right?
Then now we compare in India and Tibet and China. Not all places, but poor place. For example, my area in Tibet, 계산보다 몇 바위가 80만 가서 기계도 없고 그랬어. 또 쉐다 스페셜 게지데 까오셔야 되나? 까오 지금 통은 가가 나빠셔야 되겠다. 다 잡아기.
So I received a picture of my father a few days ago, and he was wearing a white shirt, but it wasn't white at all. It's all covered with dust and dirt, so it's kind of black now.
Then 딱 그까지 살고 싶다 들어오고 대가나 딱 한번 시간이 못 짜서 되는 그런 줄 알았어.
And then he had many layers of cloth, one on top of another.
You can see the picture. Maybe you doesn't think he's human being. Very old. Looks very
Poor.
Poor. Maybe poorer than here. Maybe homeless people. 근데 실제는 이게 봐와 들어간 이제 쪼들을 말이 들어. 실제는.
So in general, in general, talking about the lifestyle there, he's not really considered as a poor person.
But that kind of person. 다 건조 사야 돼. 가려라나 대사람이지. 내 삶은 그 단가요 말이야. 대가를 지어요.
And the food that they eat, they eat whatever they find. They don't have that option to choose this or not choose, and choose to eat this and not that.
다 지금 강발라 장로서 다 시야지 무슨 말이야. 선이다. 시야지래요 말이야.
So and then of course the heats and the cooling devices, like air condition, of course does not exist there at all.
옛날에 다 산에 되게 미담 내 민이 샘을 빠지네. 샘에 밥해봐다. 샘 찍어냈다나. 바지 건조 샘 거의 하다. 근데 찍어야 보라고 너무도 웃어.
But when you compare the internal mind, then I think that they are more comfortable, more happy than the people here.
근데 다 되게 가르쳐 그래서나 시인 된게 나기 대화 좀 돌아가면서 딱 저제시는 거마도 하고 그러죠.
So that shows that the external, the conditions, the favorable condition, will not be able to provide the internal happiness.
옛날 룸바들의 자석에 나다 그래서 실로고 된게 가든 좀 버려야 나그 선배 찍고 내가 지내다 소소소소 대상이 뭐 보면
So, for example, there are so many people who commit suicide, even though they have all this plenty of external things, but because of not finding the internal happiness, they commit suicide.
근데 이 강가를 강에는 때려주나? 따뜻 섭취고 싶은 되게도 왔어.
And also, when you meet with some kind of some sort of physical problems, you think of it as a very serious.
어떤지 봐야 간제 다 세부 되면 매와이나 실로 간제를 가는 되지 않아. 아무도 평균 말해서
So if you don't have the mental the happiness, then no matter what kind of external favorable conditions you have, will not be of much benefit.
어떤데 다 나도 남백이 출근하라 갈라고나 다 지난 게 샘나 저와 단 거를 샘 따보여 자고 그래서 내가 도게 되나 나도 저라고 그래서.
So in Buddhism, it explains that if you want to have happiness, then you have to control your mind.
아니 말아서 샘 묘모 말아서 샘데 묘모 와서 말아서 샘게 와서 와이나 가디나 다 강에 돼야 그래요.
So if our mind, if we fall under the control of our mind and our mind fall under the control of the delusions, then there will be always some kind of problems.
어떤지 다 지금 가지 마지 수수 샘 지금 글쎄 묘모 와는 말씀하지 되게 좀 싫어요.
So it's very important to control our mind and make sure that it doesn't fall under the control of the delusions.
가지 마지 지금 삼삼 나서 딱 이양 잘 되고 너무 싫어 이거를 삼삼 강이 싫어 이거를 옛날야 도도시 강에 대지 강이 싫어 맞지 봐야나 다 수수 삼아야 강이 요하는 거죠.
And so we will face many different kind of problems. And if we don't consider them as a big problem, then there will be less suffering to our mind.
근데 지금 나도 사는 데를 슈팅이면서 강이 싫어 참 많이 와서 강에 대해서 저는 삽시고 싶지도 와서.
People living here haven't met with so much of problems, so when they meet a small problem, they think of it as a very big problem.
만조는 배앙에 가야 볼라면서 신나 만조 메시지 자자이나 방고 아주 포케는 차니 홈레스 차니 다 대사면 다 지도 못 보는 분들이 들어.
So I'm not saying I'm good, but when you take example of myself, I have been like a homeless person, a beggar without even a begging bowl, has been very, very very poor conditions.
When I escaped from my religion, during that time I don't have anything, but I beg 2 days, beg up, too long. In Tibetan, tradition, when we go to bed, we ask her to, carb, they give carb. We ask her for, clothes, they give clothes. Maybe the clothes may be someone pass away, their clothes, I don't know. Anyway, first day, I don't have anything. Then I beg next 2 days, then I have, getting maybe, zamba, butter, or some people give me, cloth, some people give me the pot, pot we make in the tea, pot. I have everything. Then next 2 days, my 2 cousins come, they took all the back. I don't have anything.
Why?
No, they want to, they want to go back.
To the village?
Yeah, village. Maybe I told this long time, this very funny story. When I was escaped from my family, then 2 days away, I walk, and I beg the bag on the way, then the people give me, I have a lot of things. Next 2 days, my 2 cousins come in, they follow me, they catch me. Then they want to go back to the village.
Right.
Then I don't want to go back. Then I don't know how I couldn't go. Deceive for them.
How did you deceive them?
Yeah, then I tell maybe I don't. Then I have a lot of things, Then we carry it on the horse, then we walk. Then there's a small store. Usually in Tibetan, there are stores, they open window, they sell it inside the window. Then I say, okay, you guys buy something, I go to pee. Then I run away. Then, all the, even my, cup, they took all them back.
Geshe, why were you running away?
Yeah, I don't want to go back to.
But why?
Yeah, that time, I want to go to Lhasa. and, always stay that religion was a countryside. I don't want to stay there. First I want to go to Lhasa.
To be a monk, right?
First I don't have that motivation,
Okay. Just want to go to the big city.
First I want to go to Lhasa, Even Lhasa, that's very, famous. People cannot reach my area. Even then, when I go to Lhasa, then I decide, I go to India. Then I become monk, They're a long story. Anyway. Therefore, sometimes up, sometimes down, But it's okay. It's impermanent. Today, the time I was to say, but I can't get over this one. I had such a Matina, that's was all I
So, whenever we meet with some kind of problem, face some kind of problems, and if we don't think of it as a big problem, then it will be less to us.
And short chaining as a touch carry, Jadichi Mushavala. Takati choose a Yonan, Telamaka Chiship, Kati choose in Menan, Telamaka Chishi Shese. Also on the restaurant.
So just like Shantideva said, if it can be fixed, then why need to worry? If it cannot be fixed, what is the benefit? What's the point of worrying?
What is the time? Another number to lodge it so or the correct lodge it so or colors. Kanji Suzu Sama Tabajawa, some human on the time,
And so the main advice in Buddhism is that we should control our mind, should not let it be under the control of the delusions.
And the same human was on human cannot be a child shared on Kuntum, Maja, Chado. What to do on my.
So the kind of the delusions that we should not let our mind be influenced in are an attachment, anger, ignorance, jealousy, and so forth.
What today is that? Today, Chivaina, Kanji, Suzu, Deva, Capson, Sozora, and he kept on moving situation. So kept on going to some Nango.
So if we do that, then we get the benefit. So since we all want to have the benefits, and so we should do those things that gives us benefits.
And then Nambe Chuga Labja, that's Sunday Chong, the Labja Jimanado, my journey, Marazu tell Laleta,
so the practice of Buddhism is what you put into practice. All the instructions or the teachings that Buddha gave, putting them into practice is called practicing Buddhism.
Right. And then Sajiga Samjala Pentu Chesa, the day,
and that is the way Buddha benefits sentient beings.
Measure Sajiga and also Jichi Depa, Mundevi Tuma, Lapa Kiluana, Chuma Tuani, Tusha,
So other than that, there's no way Buddha can benefit us. You cannot take away our suffering, so you cannot wash away our sins, negativities, and so forth.
Sajiga Chulu, some Yabu Tawayana, you necessary to move it.
So if we think about the teachings of the Buddha, then it accords, it goes a long way, accords with the way of life, with our way of life.
And Marasochi PhD, the master teacher, Lapta Tomodoalachi. Kali Majavana, and Suju Lono Yomad was,
So we have to study from our own side in order to achieve the degrees like the master's degrees or PhD. We have to work hard from our side. No matter how good the teacher is, we will not be able to get those degrees without ourselves studying hard, right?
Today is a PhD degree, Yola, Gere, Kongo, Mache, or the Suzu of Chivaina, that's one of the 22 years was.
So in order to achieve those degrees, high degrees, and if you study just as the teacher has taught, then we'll be able to achieve those degrees, those results, right?
Right. We go to school, take PhD, leave PhD degrees, do some other jobs. We spend a lot of money, a lot of times. Usually, this country, maybe not everywhere, the younger generation doesn't think whatever they study, when they study, they're done, they give their life food or not. They don't think. They say, I like that, then just study. After they finish, they don't give food. They go to some other things. Right? Usually, people, whatever they do, first they study. If I study, finish that, then future they give me food or not. This is very important, you know. Right now, many people, you know, study to nurse. They say, oh, if I do nurse, then I get a good job, you know. Then I have no problem in my life. You know, even if you doesn't walk, you doesn't use, then you are dirty. How much bigger dirty, doesn't matter how much knowledge you have. If you have PhD, you know, in knowledge and you have PhD degree, you do some other job, you doesn't walk the PhD degree use, then not much benefit. Maybe just you spend a lot of time, spend a lot of money. Anyway, usually very important to knowledge, but important is to whatever you have knowledge, use that. That's very important. Then Buddhism says, Buddha give us teach, but we have to study that. First we have to study, we have to know. Then when we know, then we investigation, thinking is right or not. And after we did, then we meditation. Then that's something to do.
Then there will be change in mind.
Okay, this is a general just talk. Then we go to this text.
So in this text we go according to Buddhism. And so among the 7 limbs now, excuse me, we're in the point where it talks about the 5th limb, requesting to will, requesting the will of Dharma to be turned. So before that it was rejoicing, right? So according to Buddhist history, the Buddha Shakyamuni came about 2,500 years ago. And so he came in this world, just like like us. He was born, and then he grew up. And he got married. He run the kingdom for a little while. But then, after seeing all these the disadvantages of this samsaric life, and then he generated renunciation, and he left everything behind and went into search for the truth. So the disadvantage or the suffering of the cyclic existence are like the suffering of the sickness, the aging, death, and so forth. So even though we don't want to be sick, we fall sick. Even though we don't want to get old, we get old. And even though we don't want to die, we die. So these are the sufferings of the samsara.
We don't want to
wrinkles.
You don't want the wrinkles here. The wrinkles coming back. You don't want to hair become wet. Wet. No, my hair is wet. I'm getting hot. 같이 무슨 것도 도교 말 왔어. 나도 수보 받으니까 같이 개와 남들 가서 돈이 도움이 되니까 너무 왔어.
So we don't want to grow old, but we grow old, right? We don't want to see that. We don't want to have that look of old person, but we get those looks, right?
Today 나 같이 드슬을 문도 왔어. 뭐 된적이 동안 먹고인 동안에 다 동아들가 탐하게 다시 다 간지 지금 되었습니다. 다 지금 공연을 지내 가지 다 상지 공방세 또 와이 말했어.
So anyway, so Buddha Shakyamuni didn't want to was not happy with all these sufferings, so he didn't want to achieve, he didn't want to go through these sufferings. So in order to be freed from that, and then he found the way, to achieve that, meditation and so forth, and eventually achieve instead of full enlightenment.
What? 아니 뭐보다 상한 전에 아니 더 잡되나야? 다 추마선을 쉬도 봐 말했어.
So after gaining enlightenment, he stayed for 7 weeks without teaching.
아니 가지는 나 대입발에다 주 나로 나와서다 소와 난 마지막에 말이었어.
So the reason was because nobody came to request for teaching during that time.
어떻게나 되네 아니 지금 사 참았어야 되가. 아니 토마 아니 주나로 시선에 봐도 상기라. 또 걸마시고 말이었어.
And so the first one was the Brahma, the god Brahma, who came to request Buddha to give the teachings.
아니 되네 뒤값 주 나사게 sem체들한테 공가대 상보서까지 가상가 요가 이거라 나사게 사제되다가 자하고 바나세세 해서.
And so the first teaching who he gave to were the first 5 disciples in Varanasi.
아니 된적이 주 나야 대세대다 가서 배와이나 다 배다 시비 배다 주비스가 신이가 이마 잘 해서.
So
배다 주비스가 신이고.
And so the teaching of that Dharma happened, and according to the Tibetan lunar calendar, is on the 6th month, the Tibetan 6th month, on the 4th day of the 6th month.
아니 사제 대세대 배다 시비가 제바 종이 쇼케 다 주듯이 왕과도 와상이 말했어.
And he gained enlightenment on the 15th day of the 4th month.
어떻게 말이다. 어떻게 중국고사 강상가 되라야. 아니 다 강상가요. 진짜 같아요. 다 저 너무 못 보니. 상지 좀 된다 다시. 다 렌토요거든. 얘도거든 이 말했어.
And so those are the first 5 disciples who received teaching from Buddha for the first time after he gained enlightenment. And these beings, these 5 disciples, had a very strong karmic connection with Buddha Shakyamuni from many previous lifetimes.
어떤지 아니 뒤qab라야 다 중국 강성야 들라다 같은 거 대시 중국을 생각을 하게 됐어.
And so the teaching that was given at that time was the teaching on the 4 truths.
아니 누가 시바시 너는 누가 밥을 담아고 너는 kunju 밥을 담아고 너는 람 밥을 담아고 너는 거리 너는 고밥을 담아고 너는 람 밥을 담아고 다 담아시는 맛이 저거를 담고.
So the first he listed the 4 truths, saying that this is the true suffering, this is the true origin, this is the true cessation, this is the true path.
아니 대실래야 다 누가 시바시아스 아니 kunju 빵와시아스 뭐랬어.
And after that he says, understand the suffering and abandon the origins.
아니 고빵년데샤 람고마샤 들어.
And achieve the cessation and practice the path.
아니 대오라 다 누가 시바샤데 시바샤메 kunju 빵와시도 빵와샤메스나 같이 맞지 다 데마트 뭐 제베 아니 누가 더 마시지 말이야. 누가 되면 뭐 제베 kunju도 막 빵와요 말이야 다 소말 말이야.
So he said that after that he says you should understand the suffering, but there's no way to understand the suffering. You should abandon the origin, but there's no way to abandon the origin. So then that he was relating, those with the lack of true existence, the emptiness, the lack of true existence. It says even though you have to understand the suffering, but there's no way to understand the true suffering. The truly existing suffering. Even though you have to abandon the origin, but there's no way to abandon truly existing origin.
근데다 누가 시바샤스게 누가 가르스나 다 나서 지금 리지 누가 sem지 누가 돌았다 누가 남나서 뭐 보여래서.
So first we have to understand the suffering. What is suffering and what is not suffering? So there are many different types of sufferings, right? So physical, mental sufferings, and so forth.
아니 다들 저기 나빠나 이제 동안이 자원치 동아스 다 동아 소소스인데 저는 뭐 그래서 말했어.
So the 3 general sufferings, right? The suffering of pain, suffering of change, and all pervasive sufferings.
다 배나 동아스나 다 나가서 지금 일에 나가서 말로 지금 간지 지금 다 생각하면 나서 동아 뭐 쓰면 되는 거 그래 동아스.
And so he introduced these sufferings. So first he said the suffering of suffering, is the general suffering that we experience. We consider as suffering. So when we have pain in our body, that's the suffering of suffering.
근데 동아데 다 sem지 들어서 뭐 보다 토토리 다 무슨 거예요? 나서도 이대로.
The suffering of suffering is is easily identified by most of the beings, even the animals, so not to mention about human beings.
다 예배 등하잖아. 당게 주도 당보 마 사된 거를 강같이 감투고야 보러도 다 단다 됐어. 가만나 되는로 비만나 되는 용도 왔어. 어떻게 예배 왔어. 당보 대화로 왔어. 근데 고등어가 간지로도.
And so then the suffering of change, is like something that you feel very comfortable at the beginning, and then afterwards changes into suffering. So like when you first came here, you sit down on a cushion, you feel relaxed and comfortable. But then as you keep sitting on for a long time, then you feel tired, you feel pain here and there, and so forth. And so that turns into suffering. So that's called the suffering of change.
That we can stay till some tara.
So that time you can sit like in Tara position, where you can stretch, bend.
Anyway, today I think something about Savatana, Chanotana, Tambote,
so like when we are hot, when we feel hot, we turn on the AC, and then when we sit in the AC for a long time, then it feels cold. It feels too cold, and you experience the suffering of feeling cold, and so that's the suffering of change.
다 저번듯이 동화들 다 나도 싫어하는 것으로 말해. 간지 나도 째네 다 마시 바가는 고개 동화. 다들 저번듯이 동화서 간지 좀 쉬고 그래더라고 간지. 아주 동화에 봐 동화 못 무슨 말로 성경 말했어. 그는 고개 동화.
그래서 저번듯이 동화들.
저번듯이 동화. 간지 고개 동화로.
그래서 저번듯이 동화들.
다 나도 동화에 봐라 다 동화서 선통 못 성공 말했어.
So the all-pervasive suffering is a suffering, but we ordinary beings cannot understand that as a suffering.
나도 담보 째 지니가네. 그치 이번에 나도 동화가 째 되었습니다. 나도 동화가 째와서 되는 것도 왔어.
So from the moment we are born, this from the second moment of our birth, we are in the suffering. We don't understand that.
거기서 째서 계좌가 넣었어. 그걸 내려가 버렸어.
So that the child soon after it's born, it screams, right? It cries, and so that's the suffering. It's not doesn't like it.
그래서 간지 맞은 가서 째네 마시 봐 가서 이제 가서 동화나 째야 되는 가서 동화나 째야 가서 하고 맞다 가서 또 두지로 되고 왔어.
So we are born in the suffering. So into suffering from the time we were born, and we go on like that, but we don't understand that as suffering.
워낙 들이 동화들 가와도 좋았나? 다 대한 제대로 깨야 되는 중요한 말이야. 나도 놓고 그랬어.
And so these sufferings that we go through, where do they come from? They come also from their causes and conditions.
근데 다 제대 다 그주된 거 말이 봐 미시 봐 모바들이라고 그래서.
And so the cause of this suffering is the origin, the true origin, and that's the delusions, the root of the delusion, not knowing, the ignorance. And so those are the cause.
그래와 미시비 온게 가서 공조사는 가서 동화하는 거 왔어.
And because of not knowing, we become angry, and because of becoming angry, then we experience suffering.
공조사는 동화 연구에 시기랑 가서 뜻는 정보 말을 와서 나가서 시기요 말해.
So, if we know that we will get suffering, if we get angry, then we will not get angry, right? But because not knowing that we will suffer if we get angry, therefore we get angry.
배는 말아서 저도 몰았다는 사람은 지금 마트에 다시 서도 쇼체에도 왔어. 지금 때나 되게 소소 막으라 종자가 확거니 그만도 사서 체에도 왔어.
And so when you're driving, you try very hard not to get any tickets, because if you get a ticket, then that will harm your pocket. So in order to protect that, you'd be very careful not to get any tickets.
Right? This is where everybody, not just everybody keep the state or city law, because we know if you walk on the law, then
so you will be punished.
Right? Therefore, if we know, we follow the judgment, angry, haters, jealous. If you follow them, then we get to suffering. If we know that we not follow, try to stop. Stop
But it is hard, even though we know it is hard for us to stop those delusions, right? So that's because we are accustomed with that, with following the delusions, and since being in a time, it automatically makes us to follow. And so if you want to be free from the suffering, then you have to overcome, you have to abandon the origins, the delusions. So can it be abandoned? Can it be overcome? Yes, it can be, because you can achieve cessation. So when you achieve cessation is when you have abandoned. So since you can achieve cessation, therefore you can abandon the delusions. And so if we can be abandoned, then how do we abandon? So in order to abandon that, you have to practice the path. You have to meditate on the path. So that's the fourth, the truth. So in general, it is very far away. The path, meditating on the path is very far away. But you can never tell who has reached there.
For myself, too far away. I don't know you guys. In a time of courage, na Shambase, Nijes, Zovase, Trumsia, the Toya song or
so what we should try to do, is that we should try to develop loving kindness, compassion, bodhicitta, and practice morality, practice generosity, and so forth.
Whatever. Tanzoya chico Zova come down. I mean, 다 공로 맞이 써야 돼. 지금 소소라 까는 지금 cấp 대값을 지금 다 저거 공도 따고 그래 들어와. 남신 그 여든 예된 거 쓰지 거.
And so, practicing patience, is at the time. It should be done at the time when you are facing difficulties. So at that time, if you can be patient, then that's called practicing patience. Otherwise, if you are not facing any difficulties, then you don't have to practice patience.
Then. I don't know that patience. 오가 되네도 다시 이제 되네도 인가 대당도 다 치고고 하나 그 마찬가 랍서 집안에 그랬는 거 예스 좀 쇼나 나거나 당아서 사치문에 맞 좀도 쇼나도 하고
So you see that right in the text where we're talking about turning requesting to turn the will of Dharma.
단데도 왔 나와 중국어 그 연락나서 도마 사진에 도마를 잡는데 주먹 중국 먹고와 다시 말해들어.
So it says here, the fifth limb is requesting the will of Dharma to be turned. Originally, our teacher, the Buddha, did not turn the will of Dharma for 7 weeks after his enlightenment.
뒤에서 다 안에 사지가 되어왔네. 박성가서야 되겠다. 쏘갔다네. 중국어 말해서 왔어.
And so later, the Brahma, the king, the god Brahma, who had faith in Buddha, requested to turn the will of Dharma, and then he turned the will of Dharma.
어디는 라참에 걸려 도물을 아니 나대라 대주신 거 송어서 난 땅에 라참에 바서 대주신 거 다 가도 덴바죠. 그래서
So requested by the Brahma, and Buddha first gave the teachings to the 5 disciples.
아니 땅 나대라 대주를 내 섬다 남자 주니 이때 다른 거 준거 담보 거기 다 나대는 데다 고신 나야 돼 다주는 거 맞도 신바시 데다 지중에서 도와는 거래서 가지 가만 남을 수 없는 거래서.
And it says the Buddha listed the 4 truths 3 times, and he therefore talked about the 12 aspects. Now, this was turning the will of Dharma, the will of the transmitted Dharma. And it says Asnata Kundinya became the first of these 5 disciples to achieve Arhat, Shib, and the others 4 became stream interest, so they all entered into the path.
아니 사직이 템발하다 lungu 친구도 또 배치 분이에요. 그래서 대자 까도 대지 친구 까도 때리도 다 lungu 친구였어. lungu 친구라 그래서.
So in the teachings of the Buddha, Dharma, Buddha's teaching, Buddha's the Dharma, the transmitted Dharma, and the realized Dharmas. So these teachings, the teachings on the 4 Noble Truths, the words of the Buddha, translated teachings of the Buddha, all these are transmitted Dharma.
안에 또게 중국에서 다 산지도 장주 선배도 되지 간지 다 나와서 냠네 장주 선배도 저런 거 왔어.
The realized teachings are the the realizations, within the continuum of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, the healers and Sodhirajas that are achieved through practicing Buddha's teaching.
what the chini ta sanjila chumukowa ta kurde ta teni chumukowa yin asa de shuman berewa.
And so then from there this system came, of requesting to turn the will of Dharma.
어때다 만도 지 다 야소 맞는 다 마가 좀 지다 지나 셰초가 말해서 와.
And so actually it is not allowed to teach. It's not allowed to teach if you are not requested to teach.
와. 아니 같이 셰지에도 전에 코서 가지만 셰드나 아니 얘기나 그 내가 이메가 딱고 뱀 내로 왔어.
And so just because you know, if you just talk about it to other person, you don't know if the person really want to hear it or not. And so if it's something that the person don't want to hear, then instead of benefiting that person, you might end up harming that person.
근데다 다 남배가 제주에서 가는 거지. 전소치 다 대자 수수야. 다 줄이 셰로 치지 막다 좀 말은 나이나 다 마셔 좀 말해서 시간이 좀 말이야. 진짜 그보다 진짜네. 아무세요도 가로 왔어.
So if somebody asks you to teach such and such teaching, then of course you can teach, and that will benefit because that's the person. That's what the person wants to have, right? And so otherwise, you should not teach if you are not requested to teach. That's in general. But of course, if you see some special case, if you know that this will really benefit that person, then you can teach. But without knowing, if you teach, then that might harm. That's why you're not allowed to teach.
그렇지. 가진대양 전에 추진고는 도면은 여관도 들어다 딱 가지. 단 돈음도 고놈도 다음에 중국만이 또비 중국들 애들 송을 해서 중국을 이런 거 좋아해. 또비 중국 이해하는데. 아니 돈음도 고놈도 또비 중국. 아니 다 지금 다 또비 이런 거 좋아해 말해서.
And so then, so that is why requesting to the will to return is one of the 7 limbs, as the Vasubandhu says in his Treasure of Metaphysics. He says first turning of the Dharma's will, then follow the path of seeing and so forth. So that shows the true teachings, the transmitted teachings and the realized teachings. So the teachings that you receive from the Buddha first, like on the Four Noble Truths and so forth, those are the transmitted teachings. And then through practicing them, when you achieve the path, the realization of the path of seeing and so forth, then that is the realized teachings.
어들이 나야다야 제비가라 양치고서 맨다이나 맨다 소고 그새까지 같이 걷고네 세진 걸로 뜻동된 바인가 눈이 다소원데 다 주소로 지세요. 저거래서.
And so then when you make a request, when you request, how do you make a request? What is the manner of making a request and so forth? That's what Pabongka Rinpoche is explaining in the following. It says when you request the turning of the wheel of Dharma, and if you have a mandala set arranged 9 handfuls on the, or 9 hips on the base, and visualize all this as 1,000-spoked golden wheel while making the request.
아니 라니야 다 라탕바 좀 뭐. 대라 트레이닝 다 좋아. 산지도 잘해서 뭐 보여주고. 대마주나 다 조진하고. 대마주나 다 찍다고 싶다. 저나 좋아서 레스트리다 가지.
So you can also imagine yourself. You can imagine yourself as Brahma, and who is making this request to turn the will of Dharma or give the teachings. And it says here, so you could even visualize yourself as the great Brahma, and then imminent numberless replicas of yourself which go out to the Buddha in the 10 direction. If this is beyond you, you could imagine a replica of yourself for each number of the merit field. And if even this proves too much, just imagine that one of you offers a will to them.
어디 죽어가 일어났다 남주까지 맞았지. 네, 고마 때문에 매달 표기 와서 이제 다 누구 그래 다 나는 이 말에서.
So when you make mandala offering, before the teaching, so that is the kind of the practice, of requesting to turn the will of Dharma.
어디 죽어가 일어났다 다 들어오면도 가지. 들어야지 야지 매달피 들어가 써봤다가는 수수야 속사 들어오면 뭐 장기를 해서.
So when you make mandala offerings, to turn the will of Dharma, you also, because you are doing the mandala offerings and so forth, so that's from there you accumulate a lot of merit and also purify a lot of negativities.
다 들어오게 다 들으면 중국어 그러면 이 새끼들. 아니 다 배자 마치는 가서 라마치는 이was. 가로. 부정 제세 다에 근데도 계단 예단 가로. 부정 제세 다에 그 계단 예단 사실 주의자. 특정으로. 부정 제세 다에 로데 근데 근데 계단 예단이라고 그러지 다시 주의자. 가가지고 라마치고 도움이 되게 저렇게 쓴바디 중국어 그냥 이 말했어.
So there's another requesting to turn the wheel of Dharma, the verse in the Lama Chopa, which I don't remember exactly now. So there's a verse there.
With the 도매되니 the first, second, third verse. That's okay. Also, yeah. Also sanction. Also King of Prayer also there.
So here in the royal prayer of the noble deeds, also in the King of Prayer, it says, it mentions about the verse requesting to teach the Dharma, right?
What the name? Kanji lazo ju pesa condition bana ita yana ding nyamne ta mache yore so.
So most of the scripture, most of the text, the ritual texts, they have this practice of the 7 days.
So
mainly it is for the disciples, for the practitioners to accumulate merit. And so when we accumulate merit, that also removes the obstacles. And then when the obstacles when the negativities are purified, the obstacles will be removed. When the obstacles are removed, then whatever you wish will be accomplished. So Buddha said those with the merit will achieve all the happiness and will purify all the negativities and will accomplish all their wishes. So when two persons are born from the same parent, but one becomes successful, one doesn't. The reason is because the person who becomes successful has accumulated merit, a lot of merit in the past.
Okay. You got it? Go ahead. I recited the Lama Chiva maybe 100, maybe 1,000 times, still I'm not memorized. Oh.
Me too.
We don't think, just we go.
In Tibet version.
I don't know.
In G version?
Read the English also, right?
Okay.
Which one? Please lead this one?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Please lead full or right of profound and extensive Dharma from 100,000 billowing clouds of perfect wisdom and compassion. Is that correct?
Yeah, pretty good.
Oh. So that the gems. Now I'm examining, guys.
So that the gems?
So that the gems.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah.
Gems grant of the benefit and blessing of infinite mediator. Mediator. Who's a mediator? Infinite mediator.
So that the jasmine garden of the benefit and bliss of infinite migrators,
may be born, elbow,
abide long,
and increase.
Increase.
Oh,
Slowly.
this maybe not what's the exam for me.
Thank you, Geshe.
Yeah.
Anyway, everybody try to our best, not perfect. When we perfect, then we die. Usually when people pass by, we say, oh, very nice, they talk about all the good qualities.
Oh, yeah.
Usually when they leave that, they don't care, oh, he or she very bad. Therefore, when we perfect, then we do. Right?
Yeah, like that.
Anyway, okay, yeah, I think that's it. Then, if you guys have any questions, maybe give some question. Otherwise, maybe you're going to sit down, maybe not much time. If you have any questions?
Oh.
If you have no question, then I'll give you some questions.
I have one question.
Okay.
I have one question. Thank you. Geshe, in the mandala, it says to offer mandala with 9 heaps. So, is it a heap in the middle, then heap in the cardinal directions, then heap in the intermediate directions? That adds up to 9, but I don't really know. Does Geshe know?
I don't know either. Usually we say 7, 21, 36, right?
Yeah, so 9
This is some, also they have some 9 and 5, I don't know how they count.
Oh, I see. Okay.
If somebody knows, they can say.
We can research.
You guys research, maybe Google. Any other questions?
It mentions that the 4 truths he taught in 12 aspects.
Oh yeah.
He taught 3 times one of the 12 aspects.
Oh, I already mentioned. Then do not have the demo, then the country but the demo, then the lamp, then go back the house, and what she. And in Nipadla, do my shibasha, country powasha, along the lamb shas, 10 die. They have a jejua. And in Tawata, do my shibasha de, shibashami, country powasha de, or my shames. And go back and set them in the shame, lamb go back to the goma shames. They choose this.
So those the 4 noble truths he spoke 3 times, right? So each time makes it 4. The second time 8, and the third time it's 12. So that's the 12 aspects.
But what are the aspects?
So that's why it says like the first this is suffering, and this is an origin, and this is cessation. This is path. And then second he said you should understand the suffering, and you should abandon the origin. You should achieve the cessation, you should practice the path and so forth. And then third, he said, this is the suffering, but you should understand the suffering, but it cannot be understood as suffering. And you should or abandon the origin, but cannot be abandoned. It cannot be abandoned. You should achieve the cessation, but cannot be achieved. And so then the third one, then it says you should meditate on the path, but cannot be meditated on. And so that way it becomes 12 aspects.
So the third was the on the emptiness, right?
Yeah, so that's what it said, relating with the emptiness, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay?
Thank you.
Okay, then if you guys have no question, I'll give you one question.
Anyone have another question?
Quick.
Vikrant, you always have a question.
I have a question.
Look at the question.
Someone hold this for me, Kron?
This question is because when he asked me to ask a question. And I'll use the microphone. So my question is that like Brahma, right? Brahma requested Buddha to teach. So now Brahma in India is considered the creator, from the three Murti is the creator. And all of Buddha's teachings kind of negatify the creator. So here is one of the most powerful gods in the world, asking him to teach, knowing that he is going to negatify his own existence. Why would he want to do that?
Suicidal.
장발이라. 장발이 다 코란처럼 장발이 딱 혼자 힌두철로 간도 장발이 다 쳐시 찍어라. 코란도 직된 그거 코레스 그래. 코에 직된 소리스 거라. 안에 다 이나다데 상계점도 되게 되는 송전 나와드는 그 콜라 뱀 뿌려 먹어지고 그랬어. 다 거지 된 거 보이면 뿌려 먹어지고 그랬어. 다 코란은 먹어지면 밀어드는 거에 되는 송주 수준나 송전 나라나서 안 해주고 그랬어.
근데 되게 라스가 되는 그거라야 되나 이시가 되지 마라. 간다. 그게
그래. 인도에 찍어 왔다.
인도 찍어.
그래. 다 찍어 왔지.
그걸 듣다 그거야. semje 소소라 그래. 감도 뭐가 가가요 완다. 아니 감도 뭐가 가게 온 거지. 그 바도 진짜 온 거다. 용어로 써. 내가 때문에.
저는 남배 루션은 그 거다가 그거 보고 찍어 봐.
남배 주제나야 또 그거 보면 찍어 말이 들어가. 그거 걔는 말했어.
So, I mean, you can say from the view, right, from the Hindus view, from the point of view of the Hindus, he's considered as the creator, of the world. So, but other religions will say somebody else is the creator of the world. So anyway, so this is from their view. So maybe it helps them, the Hindus, to have more devotion, more faith in him, and so forth. I don't know. So maybe because of their reason, there is such and such kind of views in it. But from the Buddhist perspective, the Brahma, is considered as a god. Of course, it's very powerful, has much more longer lives and much more happiness than the ordinary human beings and so forth. But it's not considered as a creator from Buddhist point.
But there was no Buddhist at that time. So you see, at the time
No,
Brahma was asking, there was no Buddhist.
이거 남배철이 영어라서. 남배철은 영어는 열어봐.
남배 때 나도 또만 내주는 거. 남배 때면 자들 좋아. 나 사실 시월.
So this is there are countless Buddhas, right? So this is the fourth Buddha only, and then among the 1,000 Buddhas, of this fortunate eon, and this is the fourth Buddha. So there was Buddha before that, right? Obviously, there was Buddha's teaching. There wasn't Buddha Shakyamuni's teaching, but there was Buddha's teaching.
고원지도 세트도 예수선 같다. 다만 배워마다 남자들아.
So all these Buddhas, the 1,000 Buddhas of the fortunate eon, the first, second, third, and the Buddha Shakyamuni is the fourth one. So the first, second, third, they came, they gave teaching. Their teachings disappeared, and then Buddha Shakyamuni came, and then he gave teaching. So his teaching, which is still flourishing, and so you can say that from that point, from that perspective, you can see that there was Buddha's teaching before.
Okay. Another question. Okay.
I don't have a question. I do a question. Geshe, I thought I could read the English verse from King of Prayers.
Oh, that's good.
Or Geshe could read.
No, you can so uncheck too much.
So I think this is the right verse. So at the beginning of the King of Prayers, so just on the second page of when we usually recite it, it says, "You who are the bright lights of worlds in 10 directions, who have attained to Buddha's omniscience through the stages of awakening, all you who are my guides, please turn the supreme wheel of Dharma."
Yeah.
I think that's the right verse.
It's good.
Damchoe?
Yes.
Usually, when you read the textbooks, you can find, here's a, prostration and orphan and, Jews, different verses. Okay?
Geshe, I have a question. So, turning of the wheel of Dharma, requesting a teacher to turn the wheel of Dharma can be for any Dharma topic, correct? This is an example of the first turning of the wheel of Dharma, and it was the Four Noble Truths that Buddha taught. Is this correct?
Any teachings, when we before start teaching, always we do mandala of,
Yeah.
teaching.
Kurukulla 되는 거라서.
바리나 중국 거서도 야다다 돼. 다시 단위에 나도 말서 봐. 나도 앞에 치실라데 중국 거라고 말서 봐.
So yeah, the turning the wheel of Dharma, yeah, that's only for the maybe first one, for the Buddha.
So
But for other teachers, requesting for the teachings,
Yeah.
requesting to give teaching, requesting to teach the Dharma, like that you can make. It's turning the wheel of Dharma. Turning the wheel is it has a different meaning.
okay. So when we send a letter to a teacher, for example, a visiting teacher to come here and do a specific teaching, it's not the same.
저걸 걸어놨어. 죽으려고.
대충 말이야. 다 주나로 시켜. 코로나 시다 죽고 와야 되는데 당한 때 나가 말이야. 단위 배제 당 말이죠.
You don't use that term
Okay.
in that case.
그냥 가서 바빠야 되는다. 그 집안으로 잡아야 봐. 이거 중고 여러 왔어.
We have a rebuttal.
So if you're teaching Dharma, of course it is kind of turning the wheel of Dharma, but it doesn't use that. That 가르쳐볼 때 내가 상계를 얻고
중국 고르다 가도 저 당발이 상계를 고지 마.
상계를 내가 직수야지라. 뭐 아마도 상계기 제가 때문에 상계가 제가 때문에 지금 최송하죠. 들어 좋을 것 같아요. 지금 강가지나 상계 상당히 좋을 것 같아요.
내가 강가발이라고 양sam정도 맨앞이네요. 맨앞에서만 또 양갈래 만들고 중국 건데 주로 지나지.
상계 저기 잡아. 상계 저기 잡아.
중국 고르다 다시 상계를 고르자 말이야.
So usually, it is the Buddha who comes in this world, and then who, perform the deed of gaining enlightenment, and perform the deed of teaching the Dharma. So there, you say turning the wheel of Dharma, but you don't normally say turning the wheel of Dharma. It's just, say teaching the Dharma. So only for Buddha usually.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
In our blue prayer folder,
Yeah.
after the short mandala, ground perfume anointed flower strewn, the second mandala, Jetsun Lama, Dampai Kenam Ki. The English we have request to turn the wheel of Dharma.
Yeah, 백이 나갔다 주소로지다 주시하로 지나
그래.
이렇게 합니다.
근데 연락해서 연락 먹어야 돼.
중국 거가 이노.
That's the title.
중국 거가 그 이노.
저거
끓이다. 딱 마셔.
초콜릿.
야, 초콜릿.
That doesn't say in the text.
나도 다 잠시 주시하고 해서 나 나도 취나로 지나고 이제 주시하로 지나고 받을 오지 않나?
뭐는 되나 저걸 걸어 줄 알았어. 저걸 거 만다도 나왔어. 안들라는 이거 말해서 되잖아.
그 런던 리드리가 되시다가도 단위 100개나 세 가가 단위에 따는 거 같죠.
So I think it's okay to say, but you normally use that term in Tibetan to request for the teachings.
근데 지단디 벌레 중국 거가 그 해놨어요. 중국 거가 해놨는데 나도 다 중국 거로 시키지. 단위가 제가 그게 딱 말대로 주나로 시세요.
Yeah, so here of course it says the will of Dharma, right? The requesting the will of Dharma to be turned. So here also says requesting the will of Dharma to be turned. So yeah, that's one of the limbs, but normally when you ask somebody, some teacher, like a regular teacher, to give teaching, then you don't say turn the will of Dharma. Could you please turn the will of Dharma?
But whether it's symbolically,
Can you please turn the will of Dharma on death and impermanence?
Okay.
So what do you say? Just
So
please come here and teach.
can you please teach on the death and impermanence?
So
Can you give us teaching on death and impermanence? You don't say, please, can you turn the will of Dharma on death and impermanence?
So in the seven limbs say that we say go supe. Then the line turn the wheel of Dharma, drola churki holo. So is the churki holo, that's the
The will of Dharma.
turn, that's wheel Dharma.
Yeah.
So we
Churki
always,
holo.
so in all our prayers we say turn wheel of Dharma.
Yeah.
But when we ask a teacher, we don't necessarily say.
And that's really they're not cultures, but usually
however,
Tibetan doesn't use that,
however, when we do write a letter to a teacher, we do include a 7-limb prayer. So
Yes, in the prayers you can say that, but when you normally talk,
Okay.
you don't say like that.
Okay.
In prayers you can say that.
We're being very technical. So
Yeah,
a little-
exactly.
Stop. Is that what you want?
Usually not big quantity, there's some
Yes,
different
yes,
words.
yes. Thank you, Geshe.
Not really important.
But
No.
we're good to clarify.
Yeah.
There's some, usually Tibetan, I don't know, maybe it doesn't say much. It's a political teaching.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's more for formal prayers, but when
Formal
you're
prayers,
asking,
yeah,
it's
yeah.
different.
that's right.
Okay.
Okay?
Yes, thank you, Geshe.
Thank you.
Okay. Then I have one question, just one question. 아니, 또 남이 취지에서 가르치는 남이 취지와 차고 가르치는 남이 취지와 그러잖아.
저는 너무 믿어요.
What is the real practice dharma?
What is the real practice of Dharma?
Yeah. 그래요.
예.
오만 병.
Is it a trick question?
No,
It's
it's a straight question. What is practicing Dharma?
Yeah.
Is Manipemung saying or Manipemung practicing Dharma?
To subdue your
Yeah.
mind.
What?
Renunciation of samsara.
이게 취지와
Practicing
Calling everything.
Yeah. Then where's other?
practicing bodhicitta.
Then
When you go about your daily life, putting the teachings into practice.
Try not.
좋은 말해서
아,
니마지가 고로 양내지가
근데 딱 그러면 서서 취해도 넌 얌래를 구워야 돼. 얌래 취해.
야.
Attempting not to disturb the minds of other beings.
그래? Then 오만 병.
The non-violence.
Non-violence.
Not violent.
Then in holiness, Dalai Lama, Tibetan Studies, very, very fast. Then he said, you translate it to English, they say, money.
Is it then trying to put into practice, not just words, the verse from Christ Shakyamuni? Do not commit any non-virtuous actions, perform only perfect virtuous actions, subdue your mind thoroughly. This is a teaching from me.
Good, you read it, it's check.
I checked first,
Yeah.
but yeah.
I think good, yeah. Everybody liked, I liked her answer, subdue the mind.
Yeah.
Right.
That's something, yeah.
Subdue the mind, then he really wrote to the verse. After subdue the mind, then renunciation to he say. Then she say, I think you guys can't get that.
So you will give good answer.
I thought maybe you guys say, oh, just say, oh, my pen. This is also, part of Dharma.
Sure.
Real part of Dharma is subdue our mind, delusions. Not all the mind. No, don't subdue all the mind, okay?
Subdue the delusion.
Subdue the delusions, not compassion. Okay, anyway, you guys very good. No. Even with some of the Tibetan people, I'm not saying that Tibetan people bad, maybe they always just come over here. Oh, no, you can ask her, what is Prata Dharma? They say, oh, go to Gomba, offer some candles, pray to
Pray to Buddha.
Pray Buddha. Most people think that. Usually, of course, this is part of Prata Dharma, but not real. Right? Therefore, you guys good. They shows you guys understand Dharma. I don't know, practice or not. They shows you understand. Okay.
The Tibetans, though, they show us devotion.
Yeah,
They teach us devotion.
they have very strong devotion.
Yeah.
But I'm not saying they're bad, but usually Tibetan is what 지통나다. 다 줄여서라 인생이 영걸 떨어져서 잘 나왔어.
So they don't study much about Dharma in Tibetan society.
But maybe some of us study and don't practice. So
Yeah.
it's a really good combination to take
Yeah.
both examples.
But usually, but then sit down at that coso. 로는 지금 말이네. 시전에 하고 생각 지금 몇년 생각이 그런데 여와 주시는 맛이 없어요. 배워지면
그래요.
몇년 살지. 내가 말하는 거 말이지.
So even though they don't practice, they always have this advice in their mind. Should not do the bad, should not say bad, and so forth.
Even the samadhi come here, maybe the truck doesn't do immediately. First, then there's a walk, second maybe. First day to just go away. Then another chick. That they can imagine the tube. Larger the end of the was go, because it was not much of a chick in different.
So the advice they get from their parents, from the people they associate with, that you should not kill the mosquito, you should just throw them away, and so forth. So you cannot do this, you should not do this, you should not do that, bad things. So that kind of the understanding or practice is there all the time, even though they don't understand what real Dharma is.
Okay, thank you everybody. Then I know you guys know how what Dharma. I hope you guys. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Returning to page 8 of the prayer book, first and fourth verses in Tibetan phonetics.